Welcome back. This is Project Freelance. Welcome to the podcast, guys. How is it going? How's your Monday going? Good morning. If you are headed to work, I hope this podcast helps you wake up this morning and helps you get in the mood for work. This one's about 35 minutes long. Hope you guys enjoy it. This week we have Blake Littell on the podcast to talk about live music photography and videography. I wanted to know how he got started, the bands he's worked with, his experience touring, and what his goals are for 2020 and onward. If you guys are new to the podcast, please hit that subscribe button. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Before we get started, I want to let you know that I have a book out called No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary. It is full of photography of abandoned places. I guess I should say it's full of photographs of abandoned places, not photography of abandoned places. But anyway, it's full of photographs of abandoned places, and it has diary entries of my explorations that I've done for the past 3 years. All over the United States and a couple locations internationally. So yeah, if you guys want to support my art, if you want to support what I do, pick up a copy of my book today at justtheletterk.com/notracers. A link will be down in the description, along with a bunch of other links that I think you should check out. Things that I think might help you out as a freelancer, tracking your mileage, getting ready for tax season, all that good stuff. But without further ado, we're going to jump into this podcast with Blake Littell. Blake, please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience.
So my name is Blake Littell, and I'm a freelance photographer and videographer.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into photography and videography in the first place. What started you out in this world, this creative world?
So I used to always, in high school and stuff, I was in TV video, and I've just always been attracted to taking photos and videos with whatever camera, but I didn't really start getting into it until I shot a show one night because I was playing in bands in the scene and would always have photographer friends and stuff. And then one night I was just like, hey, can I shoot some photos on your camera? And I ended up really liking it. So just went out, picked up my own cheap, I think it was a Canon XTI from a pawn shop, and just started there.
So you were at a show and you just borrowed somebody's camera and just started shooting, and that was what got you hooked?
Pretty much, yeah. I playing in bands and stuff in the scene, you just always seeing my friends take photos and take photos of my bands that I was in and stuff. I was like, it seems pretty fun. So I just shot one set, and I was like, yeah, I'll pick up a cheap camera and see if I actually enjoy doing it.
Wow. So what happened after that? When did you just keep shooting shows? What came next?
Yeah, I just shot literally anything I could, any band that was willing to get me in the show to shoot or anything. I would just go and shoot wherever I can. I would shoot a lot at Chain Reaction and stuff because it's pretty easy to kind of get in there.
For people that don't know about Chain Reaction, can you tell them a little bit about that venue and why it's so iconic?
So Chain Reaction is in Anaheim, California, and it's this small, I want to say 300 cat venue, if I'm correct, but it's just, you can bring your camera in, no problem, it with just a ticket, and, tons of bands come through there, and it's iconic in the scene. Tons of bands have come through there, and it's just a great place to network with the local, Orange County scene.
Yeah, so I actually, when I first moved to California, I didn't know anybody, and I was like, where the hell am I going to live? What do I do? And all I wanted to do was shoot live music, and so I thought to myself, well, there's this venue called Chain Reaction, and I had heard of it when I was living in Australia. They were talking about Chain Reaction in Australia. That's how big of a deal this place is. And yeah. So I was like, okay, so if I want to shoot at this venue, I should move somewhere by the venue. So I literally moved 2 blocks away from Chain Reaction so I could walk there because I didn't have a car, and I started shooting live shows, and then I started touring. So, I mean, yeah, the great thing about Chain Reaction for the people listening is, like Blake said, you can literally just walk in with your camera. You don't necessarily need a photo pass. It's just a venue that's very cool with photographers, capturing their space and capturing their shows. And so I think that venues like Chain Reaction, venues that allow photographers to get their start like that, are are very influential and impactful on a photographer's career. How did shooting at Chain Reaction help you develop as a photographer and videographer?
Well, like the other thing with chain too is like there's no barricade. So like it really forces you to like get to spots that are usually kind of hard to get and like to really get like the angles you want. Like it's not just like oh, I'll stay in the photo pit for a bit and then swap over to this spot. It's like you have to like work through crowds and like a lot of the times the crowds are tough to get through. But yeah, it's a hub and like anyone there is willing to like talk to you and network and just like help each other out, which is, what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So from Chain Reaction, what did you start doing? When did you get your first gig that was like paid?
I don't remember the exact one, but I'm pretty sure it was probably like shooting a band set for, whatever it was at the time, but probably at that venue or some of the other local venues that come around there.
And how did you come up with your rate at the beginning? Like, were you going off of other photographers locally? Like, how did you figure that out?
That was a hard one because like, it's just starting out, like you don't really know what your worth is, I guess. Like you can like see what other people are charging, but like other people at the time to me were like steps ahead of where I was. So it was like just trying to get as much work as I can. I kind of was like I would like leave it up to them a little bit, but then be like, no, like this would be like the minimum I could do it for. So it kind of varied at the beginning, and it wasn't until I felt like I had like enough like experience under my belt and like enough people like wanting me to come out and shoot that I like really like dialed in my first like rate.
Yeah, totally understand that. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out what to charge as well, and I think that's very common in the freelance photography world. Is like you said, trying to find your worth. So, what were some of the first bands that you photographed that you really, yeah, just when you dove into photography, like what were some of the more exciting bands for you to shoot?
The first the first band I ever shot that when I borrowed my friend's camera was the band Redeem Revive. They were pretty big in like the Orange County and like Inland Empire scene. Um, as far as like first like touring band or whatnot, I don't remember exactly who it was, but yeah, I think Redeem Revive would be like one of the first ones I ever shot.
And then who are some other music photographers that you were like looking up to that you were getting inspiration from back then?
So my friend Ariana Rose, I don't know her at right now, but I think it's like Audie Rose or something. But she was like the one kind of like teaching me what she did, and she was one of my friends like that first got me into it, and like I would just like watch her shoot and go to different events with her and like shoot with her and like learn from her. Um, and then another big one was Danny Todd. Like I would like watch his content and like how he was posting stuff and like worked with him a few times and like tried to learn as much as I could from him. Um, and then another one who I worked with a lot was I don't know if you know Turtle, Alex Curtis. I like worked. He managed one of the bands I was in at the time, and I would just always shoot different things with him and like whatever projects he was working on, I would shoot a lot with him. And yeah, those are like the main three that come to mind.
Does Alex or Turtle? I know him as Turtle, so it's weird to call him like by his name. But does Turtle still do live music stuff? I haven't like followed him on Instagram for a while, so like, do you know what he's been up to?
Yeah, I see him every once in a while still. I don't know much like artists he's shooting. He still shoots like all his homies and stuff. Um, but other than that, he works. He has a studio I think out in Santa Ana, and he works with a lot of like artists out there right now. He's working with Giant. It's like a collective studio thing. And then other than that, he always has his little like things that he's working on at the time, trying to push. But yeah, Giant is I think the one he's on right now.
Cool. Yeah, I need to catch up with him for sure. I haven't spoken to him in a while, so it'd be good for me to reach out to him. So thank you for
Yeah,
bringing him into the conversation and
yeah,
talking
of
a little bit
course.
about what he's doing. You always talk about the homies, man.
Yeah.
So tell me how your growth was. How long did it take you to get to that rate that you felt comfortable charging, that you felt like you found your worth? How long did it take you to find that?
Probably took me about a year to get to like my first like solid rate. Um, and then from there, it kind of fluctuated up and down depending on like, oh, I need to get more gigs this month, or, I'm kind of good and pretty busy this month. But yeah, pretty much about a year to get to that first rate.
Have you ever, this is like one of those weird questions that some people are uncomfortable with answering, so let me know how you feel about it. But have you ever been screwed over on a gig?
Actually, not that I like really remember. Like, there were a few that like the price amount wasn't like agreed upon, but it was like hinted that I would be getting more than what I actually did. So it was like just kind of a bummer at the end of the night when I like shot everything, and then like he's like, "Yeah, here's what I got for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I mean, I guess I can't be mad because we didn't like agree on anything." But they just made it sound way bigger than what it was. Um, but nothing really like getting screwed over, thankfully.
Yeah, seriously, that's awesome to hear. It's a rare thing to hear freelancers not getting screwed over. So that's
Yeah.
great. Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
So what gear do you shoot on now? You said you started with the Canon XTI. So what gear did you use over the years, and what do you use now?
So I started with the XTI, and that came with like an old like Canon kit lens, and then I got the nifty 50, the Canon 50 mil 1.8, which I still use every once in a while now. But when I started getting more into video and like needing to upgrade my camera, I got the Sony A63. Um, and I have a Sigma 30 that I use a lot, and then I also have a Rokinon 20 mil that I use a lot. But that's kind of my lineup right now.
What made you switch over to Sony from Canon?
Everyone who I saw was doing video, and like the quality of video that Sony was putting out at the time I switched was just insane. So trying to get into video, that like I just went for Sony.
Yeah, I did a similar thing. I was on Canon. I was a diehard Canon fan until I got my hands on an A7S II, and my friend let me borrow his, and I was like, oh my god, this camera's totally crazy. Like, I need to switch to Sony. Do you think Canon is I don't know if you keep up with like the market on cameras and stuff as much as I do, but do you think Canon is going to come out with something that will rival the Sonys?
Possibly. I mean, Canon for me, like the colors that you can get out of Canon photos are just insane. Um, but Sony is kind of that all around like just need one camera, quick switch, like capture everything. But I know Canon released the EOS R and like that whole mirrorless series, which seemed to be doing pretty well. I haven't seen like too much in person on them, but they seem to be like creating great stuff.
Yeah, that's the I was curious to see how they would do with their mirrorless, and everyone seems to be enjoying it, and it kind of makes me consider, oh, should I switch back to Canon just to get that color science, like you were saying, like the color science of
Yeah.
Canon cameras is unmatched. It's beautiful, like the things that it produces. So let's go back to education. So when you were younger, you did like TV video kind of stuff in school. Um, do you think that kind of stuff is important for artists, like developing artists? Because a lot of schools are considering getting rid of their arts programs and things like that. So can you just talk about like maybe the importance of having programs like TV video or film production or whatever in school?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Like at the time, like when I was in TV video, I didn't really see myself doing it, past the class. I just thought it would be kind of a fun class to take and something I was kind of into. But yeah, had I known like I was going to get into photo and video stuff, like I would have taken that class like way more seriously and just like stuck with it throughout the other years of high school. So like it's super important for kids who like know this is kind of the path they want to go to like have that available for them.
Yeah, and I think now that, things like being a YouTuber can be a job now, I think that having programs that can help these kids develop the skills they need, like business wise, as early as possible is super important. After high school, did you study any further with photo video, or are you pretty much self taught?
I'm pretty much self-taught. After high school, it was pretty much all like my focus was on music and like the bands I was in at the time. Um, so then it was kind of like once I got into photo videos, like all self-taught and just YouTube everything and just like watch other people and learn from other people.
Do you remember some of the people on YouTube that you watched?
Back then, it was kind of, I didn't have like a select few people. Like now I do. Now Peter McKinnon is like someone I watch
For sure.
on the daily. Um, Maddie Hapuya, like all those big like video guys right now is people I watch like pretty daily. But back then, I just kind of saw any video I could to learn that next step.
Cool. Yeah, I think that YouTube is a great place for, getting education for free, and I back it 100%. And
Yeah,
the fact that you're self-taught, I think makes you stand out because I think that it allows you to bring more of yourself into it instead of like the rules, the quote unquote rules of filmmaking and photography that you're taught in school. I think those can kind of hinder your creativity. So I think being self-taught is like a really cool thing and a really respectful thing or respectable thing. So good on you for, teaching yourself how to do that and taking the initiative to learn those things. So when did video come into play for you? You started doing photography. When did video come into play?
video came into play probably like not until like 2 years or so after. Um, I started doing a video a few months before I actually did like my first tour, but it probably wasn't until like 2 years after I started everything that I hopped onto video.
So tell me about that first tour. Who was it with, and what was that experience like for you?
The first tour I did was with Dayshell, and we were I did like 4 days on one tour with them on like a headliner, and then my first full tour was like a co-headliner with them in I Set to Kill, and that tour was it kind of drove in that like this is where I want my life to go as far as like the touring world. But yeah, it was a blast. It was awesome to like create something every single day and like be driven to like create something new.
And what was your process like for, or what is your process like for touring when it comes to creating content? I just got done with a tour literally like 2 days ago of creating content every single day for not just one band, but for two bands, the direct
Thanks.
support and the headliner. So I had to figure out how to like, coordinate my work time and my editing time. So what was your process like on tour? How did you figure out, your process for getting the content and then editing and getting it to the bands?
Yeah. So far I haven't done two bands at once. That seems like a lot. That's crazy. But yeah, so usually when I'm with a band, I'm doing merch and stuff also. So my days pretty much like get up, set up merch and everything, and then the merch booth's kind of like my editing office. That's where I just will sit up there and edit whatever I need to from the night before. And then usually I don't have too much time to like walk around and get as much candid stuff. So I try and like sneak away as much as I can to be with the band to get candid stuff and extra like B-roll footage and stuff. And then set time, obviously, my focus is just getting as much footage there as I can, and then usually at night staying up as late as I can to knock everything out.
Yeah, and what's it like to, work at night? It's a little bit different than, getting up at 8 a.m. and going to work at 9 a.m. Like on tour, you start work at like 4 p.m. when load in is, and then you work until 2, 3 a.m. So what's that like? What was that like for you to adjust to?
It's super difficult for me every time to adjust to it. Like it usually takes me like a couple days to get into the routine of it, but I enjoy it. I like working more so at night than in the morning.
Yeah, I agree. And that was I haven't toured for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So I just did this tour and like it was so weird to like get used to that again, but you once you finally get into the flow, it becomes normal, and then once the tour's over, you go home and you're like, "Wait, what am I supposed to do with
Yeah,
my day?"
exactly. You like
So,
adjust to that and then readjust back to normal at home life.
yeah, and can you talk a little bit about I've talked a lot with different artists, for example, Josh from Motionless in White Balls. He talked on a podcast episode about like the mental health aspect of touring and what it's like to be in a full-time touring band. For you, did you ever deal or do you ever deal with like any like mental health kind of aspects of tour life?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Usually it's like it's pretty easy to like be in a good mood being around just, all the people, especially if you're on like a good package where everyone like is super close and you're working for a band that's like super easy to work with and super chill. Like vibes are usually good, but it's like it's always those times like when everything's kind of winding down and you're just kind of in your own little like bunk and just like you start to like think about everything on a long drive or whatnot. And it's like that's where the mental health like starts to hit. For me anyways. But yeah, like and then just missing home and like missing family and like certain problems that go on at home that you can't really like be there to like do anything about. It's like hard to just have to sit there and like think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a very common thing in people that tour, that loneliness. It's like you're not alone because you're surrounded by, upwards of, 10, 12 people depending on the tour package, how many people on your
Yeah.
bus or in your van or whatever. You're never really alone, but you can feel very lonely at the end of the night, like you said, when you're just by yourself and you have finally have a moment to like collect your thoughts, and it can be very lonely. And so how do you get out of that? How do you distract yourself, or how do you cope with that on tour?
Um, I mean, sometimes depending, like if I have work to get done, I'll try and just like, drill myself into work and use that to distract me. Or um, other times it's like I'll usually just pop in like an album or a show on Netflix or something and try and just like zone out and like relax and take some downtime for like actually relaxing.
Yeah, definitely. And how long have you been touring for?
On and off 2 years now.
And who are some of the bands that you've toured with that you like had a great time working for?
Dayshell is all like I loved working with them. My most recent one, Slaves, I love working with them. Um, those are like pretty much the main bands I've worked for on tour. Um, but other bands on those tours were a blast to hang out with and do some work for as well.
And typically, are you a fan of Slaves and Dayshell? Like, do you enjoy their music as well?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Cool. So every night you get to go to work and you get to listen to awesome music and capture it live. What's that like?
It it's great because like especially like being fans of the band, like the song, so like the hits and where you need to be at this time. That like that helps, but also just being able to like groove out to the music while you're like shooting is like one of my favorite things to do.
Absolutely. And how does the music affect your creativity, like your video making, especially?
It's easier for me to like get a vibe on what I'm gonna do creatively, like being able to know the music.
Have you ever had any issues with like getting into shows or anything like that? Like for listeners out there that are trying to get into live music photography, can you explain to them how you get into live shows, basically, as a photographer? Like, how do you reach out to promoters, things like that?
For me, I have like, I've been working with uh the people who kind of run shows at Chain and stuff, and they run a few shows at like Glass House and stuff. Um, so at the start of it, like that was my big network on getting into, shows at Glass House or other venues that they're associated with. And then being in bands also, I had like the connections with promoters at other venues such as like Malone's or um I don't even know what the other ones open at the time were. I think there was one called The Awakening in like Murrieta that I used to shoot a lot. But just knowing like those promoters through playing in bands is like kind of how I got my connections. But I guess like even just going to those local shows and like talking to the people working it and like talking to the promoters, like a lot of the promoters in like the local scene would gladly like let a photographer like come in and like give them a pass and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you had an in almost with your, because you had done music before. So I think it's a super interesting, like, angle that you came in at. Um, but yeah, definitely promoters. Promoters are a huge way to get into shows, for people listening. Um, I just did this tour with a couple bands, and Sean Healy Presents was the like promotion company, WeBookBands.com, of the tour. And I've recently had Sean on the podcast actually to talk about music promotion and all that kind of stuff. But definitely getting in with a promoter can really help elevate your level, and they have shows like every week or every night, even some promoters, so like if
Yeah.
you want to shoot a show like and you get in with a promoter, there's a chance that they'll start paying you to cover all of their shows for them. I have a friend in San Diego that does that for a promoter. They have like 3 shows a week, and so she gets one of those shows each week, and she just has like consistent work. So definitely get in with promoters, you guys. Get in with your local promoters. It's a great way to get started in live music photography.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you want to do next? Like, what are your goals for touring? Like, would you like to tour more frequently? Like, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, so like it's right now for me it's like kind of hard because my the band I'm in now is like figuring out stuff for this next year, but I have it's weird, like I have nothing planned tour wise this year, and I'm kind of like, all right, let's get something going. But um yeah, just trying to look for tours. I'm trying to focus more on like getting music videos under my belt and just kind of like honing in my skills creatively. um Towards the end of like last year, I kind of um lost where I was at creatively. So like the end of the year was me kind of just trying to get back to creating simply like because I love creating, It felt like it got way more like work for me instead of just like creating. So that's where my like mindset is going into 2020 is like just like sticking to creating things that I like to create and also getting the work, I need to, you know, get work.
Yeah, for sure. So what real jobs do you have to help supplement your income while you're trying to grow your photography and videography business?
Yeah, so like right now I work at a hardware store, so that's like pretty much like my 9 to 5. Um, and then any free time around that is where I kind of toss in my creative work.
Sweet. And do you dabble in any YouTube or any of that kind of stuff as far as social media goes?
Not yet. I've thought about it and like thought what I could do to get into that world, but I haven't took the step to get into that world yet.
Gotcha. I think doing music videos, if you shoot behind the scenes as well, I think that's a good way to get that you could get started on there if you want to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like for me, every time I shoot a music video, I try to shoot behind the scenes because that gives me content as well, you know? So definitely if you want to get started on YouTube and you're looking for like an idea, I think that would be something cool you can do. Or even if the bands you're touring with are cool with it, making like tour vlogs, like I just finished editing up a tour vlog. It's like way too long. I don't think anyone's going to watch it because it's so long, but you know, it was fun to
Yeah,
make, you
yeah.
know, and it shows the process of me capturing shows every night, and it shows like each recap that I made for the bands each night, and so you can see how the tour went. And so yeah, tour vlogs, you know, I loved watching them back in the day, and so I figured I should make some. So yeah, I hope that you get some tours here soon in 2020. Do you have any dream bands that you would love to make content for?
In a dream world, like my favorite band of all time is Slipknot. So if I was ever like able to do content for them, like that would be crazy. Um, Also a big one for me right now is like the 1975. Like their production is crazy. So like if I was able to like even shoot one show, I'd be like super stoked. But
Definitely.
yeah, those are like the top two right now.
Hey, great bands. Both of those very vastly different in genre, but
Yeah.
both equally as big in production. I would love to also shoot Slipknot one day. That would be amazing. Um, and so, what is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
When I started, I like it was a great thing that I was shooting anything that I like wanted to shoot, but I feel like knowing like myself now and like how I shoot now, like honing in on a certain kind of like style is something like I wish I would have done earlier because it's like obviously like shoot anything because it like helps your creative like flow, but especially for like socials and stuff, like when I first had like my social medias and stuff, like it was all over the place. Like it definitely like wasn't marketed right, but like I wish back then I kind of knew how to like hone in on a certain style and kind of like market myself a bit better.
Yeah, I totally understand. I'm going through like a Instagram changeover right
Yeah.
now, like with my accounts, and so I feel very lost
Yeah.
and confused. And I like questioning like, am I doing the right thing? Like, what am I like? Should I change this? Like, should I
Yeah,
not
exactly.
change it? So yeah, marketing, especially now, like with the algorithms and like trying to battle just to have your viewers see your content is like, it's so draining. So, but with that being said, how has social media helped your growth as an artist, and how has it helped you get work?
Um, just being able to, you know, connect with the artists that like when I was first shooting like a random touring band coming through and like I'd be able to connect with them through social media to like get them the photos and so that way they can like, oh, well, hey, this kid's photos are good and like maybe next time we come through we could work with him. Different things like that. And just giving artists like a platform, you know, to post things and get their name out there.
Yeah, I think that social media has really helped artists find an audience, and it's given them a chance to reach out to, like you said, reach out to bands to potentially work with them. And just the fact that you can like DM like a vocalist and say, hey, you guys are coming to my town, I would love to shoot your show, like, and then you know, and then next thing you know, you're shooting their show and you're touring with them potentially, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
you never know what could happen just by asking. And so have you reached out to bands directly ever to shoot shows, and what is that process like?
A lot like a lot of local bands like I'll reach out to and see if they need, you know, any content or anything. And then like some of the bigger bands, like I haven't really just like hit up a big band and been like, hey, like can I come shoot? Because I know that's probably not like the best way to go about it. But bands that I've like kind of come in contact with, but don't have like that relationship, I've just been like, hey, I'm so and so. We met from this show. Like, would love to come out and shoot you. And so far, it's worked when they respond. You know.
Definitely. And so, do you have any final advice for photographers, up and coming photographers that want to get into live music photography?
Just go out to any show that you can and just shoot and keep shooting.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming on Project Freelance.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so that was Blake Littell. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Blake. I had a blast chatting with you, and I wish you all the best in 2020. I hope you get some tours lined up for this year. It would be really cool to see you back out on the road and see more of your content. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Project Freelance, please do me a huge favor and give it a big fat thumbs up. If you're new to the podcast, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support everything or anything that I'm doing, you can either head to justtheletterk.com/no tracers and pick up a copy of my photography book, No Tracers, an Urban Explorer's Diary, or you can head to patreon.com/justtheletterk and you can support my Patreon. There you will get posts, you'll get early access to my content, you will get discounts on merch, you'll get all kinds of cool stuff. Thank you guys again. I will talk to you next week on another episode of Project Freelance. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out and go create something.